Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Daily Connection. My name is Becky Robinson, and I am so glad that you have joined us. I see several of you are starting to come in. Welcome to today's Daily Connection. We're here with Joan McArthur-Blair and Jeanie, and Jeanie, I'm afraid of saying your last name incorrectly, so will you say it for us, please?
Yes, it's Cockell.
Cockell. I thought so, but you know, it's been kind of a day here. Here in the state of Ohio, we have a lot of changes happening to the minute, and I happened to step out to go to Costco. I was telling Joan and Jeanie, I've never seen anything like the crowds today at Costco, and I am grateful today to be back home in time to be with you. So as you're joining today, we want to invite you to find the chat panel. Tell us where you're calling in from today. Tell us how things are going where you are. And also take a moment to tell us what's one thing that you are grateful for today. Joan and Jeanie, before we started the broadcast, you were talking a little bit about what life is like for you in Vancouver Island. And why don't you tell us a little bit about that as people are coming in?
Well, here in Victoria on Vancouver Island on the west coast of Canada, we're told to stay in our houses and to keep our physical distance from one another. But we do, luckily, the two of us live near the ocean and have beach, so we can go and walk there with lots of other people who are keeping at a distance, but enjoying the sunshine and the ocean breezes.
And I think, Becky hit on something so powerful that I think one of the reasons Jeanie and I said we wanted to do this is that, many of the people on this broadcast are leaders or consultants, and everything in our worlds is changing. Like for Jeanie and I, we're consultants. All of our business is gone, right? And so we have lots of time to talk to you, which is wonderful. But the complexity it creates in everybody's life and how we have to be ready to receive this moment's change and how we deal with that and how we take care of each other. One of the most powerful things from another webinar that Jeanie and I were on recently, someone said, what story do we want to tell of this time? And I think it's such a powerful question for us as leaders. Like, what will be our story in this time when we look back and how we treated the people who work with us, how we tried to lead, how we tried to help, what will our story be? And that was such an extraordinary question. So that's also going to be our call to action. So we'll give you that now, but we'll give it to you again later. So lots of people are coming from all over the world. It's great to see the chat going and what people are grateful for. And
yeah, it's very powerful. So for those of you who might want to join the conversation on social media, we invite you to use the hashtag #TheDailyConnection. A couple of other notes as we get started. I had an email overnight from someone in Australia who very much wanted to participate in these sessions, but it happens to be 2 a.m. in Australia right now. So we have made the decision that we are going to make these recordings available daily, and we'll be opening a new channel within the Weaving Influence YouTube channel called The Daily Connection, where you will find the recordings of all these conversations. We also welcome you to join the Facebook group, and Kelly will put that in the chat. We have some ongoing conversation and encouragement with one another on Facebook, so we welcome you to join that. We all need each other during this time of rapid change and stress, and we're grateful that you're here. So as we log in, as we dive into the content today, Joan and Jeanie, what I would love to start with is for you to share with us how your appreciative resilience work on hope, despair, and forgiveness is so important to us in this complex time of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Well, I think powerfully for us when we think about resilience is this notion of resilience being a practice, right? It's not like we're good at it every day, right? And Jeanie and I were talking about that before we did this webinar, that resilience is a practice, and that word practice is so important because we've looked at each other over the last week and gone, oh my God, it's all gonna go, oh my God, and then kind of pulled back from that and took a breath and tried to change the questions we're asking. And so I think that notion of living in this constant minute by minute cycle of hope, despair, and forgiveness, the ways in which we uplift ourselves and each other's, the ways in which we find our strengths in times of despair, and our willingness to reach out and offer grace to our neighbors and forgive each other and practice forgiveness for ourselves is so powerful in this time.
And, our model is based on appreciative inquiry, philosophy, processes, and so on. And today we don't want to go into the details of that, but basically it's looking at the world through a lens of what are the possibilities? What strengths are we using? What's actually working well within this amazing craziness that we're all involved in? And appreciating in the sense of really focusing on what's happening, being aware, right? Being aware of all that needs to be done, what we're asked to be done, how we can help others. So that real appreciative part of appreciative inquiry, and of course the inquiry is to continue to be curious about what we can do, how can we help others, how can we help ourselves, and how can we engage this way across and around the world, which we've been doing very much, and being inspired by the way people choose language differently and say, challenge, not social distancing. We don't want to be socially distanced. We want to be socially connected, but we want to physically distance. And so just changing the way we look at how we are in this time, major time of despair. It's not just individual despair, it's whole community connection. Wow, what an opportunity to practice our connection around the world through this terrible opportunity and the despair that we are all living in, to get back to that hope, right? To be looking at what are the possibilities now? What are we learning? How are we learning to connect more?
And I think, right now in this, as Jeanie said, this moment of kind of world despair, if you want to call it that, so much is being asked of you as leaders. You're being asked to protect your own family. You're being asked to perhaps close your businesses. Your consultants, your clients have probably said, we're canceling. What's going on? You're being asked questions you have no answer to. Will I be coming back to work? When is this going to be over? Is my workplace healthy if I go there? All the incredible questions that leaders are being asked, and the strength it's taking at the moment to reside in that place, and reside in that place not just for self but for others. And so much is being asked of leaders at this moment, and it's a very, very tough time. Yeah, somebody just mentioned this, I've been reframing language from social distance to social spaciousness. And we were on another webinar where we, reframed it to physical distance but social connection. And I think that's really important. Language is so important right now, because social distancing implies that we aren't connected as human beings. Physical distancing is a notion of protecting each other from what is going on. And so I think their notion of hope, despair, and forgiveness, and the practice of those things in the day-to-day is more important right now than ever.
We all have stories, I'm sure, of how we're connecting more, even with family. I have a sister who, we talk once in a while, right? She's over on the mainland, we're on the island. And last week, her husband and her daughter contacted, what do you call them?
COVID-19.
Yeah, COVID-19. And so now daily I'm checking in. I'm daily checking in with my sister. She's fine, she's negative, but her husband is positive. And he's doing fine, he's almost better, right? But, the shock of it coming home to being so close, we're not physically close, but, with FaceTime, we can every day. And then yesterday, St. Patrick's Day, the two families got together because, of course, they're all having to quarantine because the daughter's, all the rest of her family's fine, her kids are fine, her husband's fine, so it's the daughter and my sister, my brother-in-law, and so they all got together for St. Patrick's Day because they're all quarantined anyway, and they all look very happy. So to focus on the fact that many people will be living through this very well in this very, very challenging time, and not everybody will, but to focus on supporting those. Because they have support, they know that they're cared about. That caring and connection is so important right now.
It sure is.
And I think that kind of leads us to one of the first questions we wanted to put out to the chat. This idea of strengths in this time of despair. And so, I don't know if Becky's going to throw out the question, or we are. You want me to just keep
Either way, and Kelly, if you can type it up for everyone, we would love to hear from you in the chat.
Yeah.
What strengths are you using in these times of despair? And I'm sure there are lots of different strengths that we're each bringing, and focusing on them will help us to lean into those strengths. So take a moment. If you're typing in the chat, please select all panelists and attendees so everyone can see your responses. What strengths are you using in this time of despair? And we would love to see your responses and share them with the group.
And we're going to kind of watch the chat and make a couple comments, but one of the amazing strengths that was offered to us from somebody else who's I'm not sure if she's a neuroscientist or studies the neurology of the brain. She gave us this thing of how we have this limbic response, 90 seconds of adrenaline coursing through our body because we're afraid. So one of the practices Jeannie and I have been doing is saying, okay, wait 90 seconds. Like just, you know, as you're getting ramped up here, just take a breath and wait 90 seconds, and then we'll talk through how to do this. And we see the chat going up, you know, this flexibility, incredible. You know, people struggle with change. Like every morning we listen to the news, and every morning we are changing our habits, both for business and personally. We are changing how we connect with our clients, and we're changing how we work. Reframing the negative, reframing, such a powerful practice. What is the tiniest possibility in this moment?
Yeah, I think laughter and you know, paying attention to our whole beings, our well-beings. For me, when I'm getting very stressed, I just walk out the door and walk to the beach. I'm lucky enough to live near a beach, and I can stay at a distance from people, and the sunshine and the walking by the ocean, it makes a huge difference. And just pausing and using our practices, that, you know, our practice that we have many different kinds of practices, but that sort of the spiritual, you know, the calming, the taking a pause, you know, meditating, the physical, you know, keeping ourselves, you know, well fed and well movement, and then the intellectual, connecting in these ways with people to get inspired by people's ideas, because people have lots of ways to share with each other about how they're being resilient through this time of despair.
And I think the other thing we want to kind of say to people is it's okay to feel despair. This is a frightening time. For people who have people like Jeannie and I's age in their family, they're worried about them. Our daughter is worried about us. She thinks that we're vulnerable, right? Which we probably are, right? And so it's okay to feel and reside with that anxiety, right? And it's the power of that anxiety turn to something positive for yourself and your community is what I'm really trying to practice for myself. And it's not easy, you know. I just want to run to the grocery store and buy tin goods, you know, like it's
not toilet paper.
Not toilet paper, you know, like we're done with the toilet paper thing in Canada, let me tell you. I'm sorry. But it's okay to reside in that place temporarily.
Well, so you talked before about hope, and I would love for us to spend a moment talking about what it means to practice hope. I think that in my life, I've always thought like hope is looking forward to something better. So in these times where, you know, everything good that we had on the calendar has been canceled, what does it mean to practice hope in our day-to-day lives?
Yeah, for me, hope is about the way every morning you wake up, and I start with gratitude practice after I've had breakfast and coffee. But, you know, I think what you did with starting these calls, and I think you're going to be doing that with all the calls, start with a gratitude practice or something like that, where you actually look at what is good in your life, to get away from those news items that have just sent you down the rabbit hole. And so, you know, having that practice of, okay, and this is what I'm grateful for, and this is one thing I could do today that will make me continue to feel good about myself, and what kind of vision do I have for my day, and then live through the reality of the day with holding on to those notions. And that for me is a helpful thing to keep hope and hopeful view.
And I think these the small practices of hope, you know, every time we are able to turn toward the light, it feeds us. and just the ability to say, I'm going to take a moment and somehow think about the ways in which I can be hopeful in this time. Because we will be forever and irrevocably changed by this experience as a world society. And so how is it that we venture and evolve? And venture is just that taking that first step. Like, what is it I'm going to do today to give hope to the people who work with me, hope to myself as a leader? What am I going to do today to venture a little bit? How is it I'm preparing my organization and myself for evolution? Because that evolution will come. I mean, how will it change, for example, education? You know, suddenly we have an entire population of professors who will be able to teach online. You know, it will fundamentally change how education is in the future, as all of our businesses will change in the future. And how are we providing hope toward that evolution?
And I love the comment on the chat about the yoga teacher. I've seen so many people putting up things that are now available to others via distance, whether it's yoga or whatever, whether it's these webinars that you're doing, Becky, or, you know, it's so people are thinking about, well, what can I give now to the world that will help us all keep that hope?
So I know we have another question for the chat. Kelly, if you can type it in, and we invite you again to select all panelists and attendees so everyone can see your comments. And this question is, how are you fostering hope? Did I get it right? Yes. How are you fostering hope and a hopeful view? So we would love to hear from you about that. And I apologize, I'm muting when I can because I have my kids here just like everyone else.
One of the ways that,
so yeah, go ahead.
One of the ways that small ways I'm fostering hope. We live in Victoria, British Columbia, so of course it's well into spring now. So I'm putting up my cold frame in my garden, and as I plant my seeds, I'm thinking not just about Jeanie and I in our garden, but if I had to share with my neighbors because they needed things, what seeds should I plant and what seeds should I leave behind? Because I always have enough seeds, like to have a 50-acre farm. I have this compulsion to buy seeds. And so it's a way to provide hope. And it feels like hope for me when I put those seeds in the ground. And it's a way to think through hope that I might be able to share with others. Because you have no idea by the time we get to July and August when we start to harvest, whether my neighbors might need things or not, or whether we might need things or not.
I'm enjoying what I'm seeing in the chat about people focusing on the positive and setting a positive example for co-workers and connecting to people and all the things that you can do during this time to keep up. I'm creating cards and
virtual happy hours.
Yeah,
definitely a good way to create hope.
Yeah, right? We've started that, offering people would you like a cocktail hour via Zoom later.
Count me in.
And you know, volunteering to babysit for a mom who's lost daycare,
helping others.
I think that those things are huge because we think about how many people need to be still at work, particularly retail, hospitals, daycares, essential services, fire people, and so on and so on. They still need daycare. So
Sure. So what role does forgiveness play in times like these?
I think forgiveness is such a powerful word, right? And we encourage people to think about forgiveness sometimes as empathy or compassion or the notion of letting go. And I think that this is a moment where we can't control our lives. You know, governments are saying, this is what we're asking you to do, and we want to comply with that. Some governments are saying this is what you must do and you must comply with it. Individual control is beginning to be removed for the possibility of our global health. And so to find in your heart the place to honor those people making those decisions on behalf of a global population is tough because you want to just go next door and visit your friend, or you want to go back to work because I go to work every day. I want to go to work. And so
I need to go to
work, and I need that money. And so to
Yeah.
find the places in your heart to stay in this place of really complex, everyday changing communication.
And I think also, it's so easy to get cranky and irritated and angry and be full of fear. And so I think a lot of self-forgiveness is needed through this, and recognize that all those feelings are real feelings that are normal for in these kinds of huge world crises, and just look at self and say, okay, well, that was an okay thing to do because that's how I felt. Now what can I do to shift back to that hope? And we've got lots of ideas from the people in the chat, and I'm sure everyone on this call has ideas of how they move into hope.
And I've been spending time over the last week with leaders who are laying off their staff because their organizations are closing down. They have to lock their doors. In Canada, in British Columbia, not necessarily Canada, but in British Columbia, we're kind of in the place of, if it has a door, it's pretty much closed. So like all pubs are closed, all restaurants are closed, all public gathering places are closed. And so some organizations can't have all their staff remain in place. And so I've been talking to leaders about how they're feeling about having to forgive themselves and about sending people home. And, we have structures coming in our country to support those people, a COVID-19 emergency fund, and our unemployment insurance is being changed to accommodate, and all kinds of things are happening. But still, how does it feel to tell somebody they can't come back in the midst of a crisis? And so I think for leaders to forgive themselves too, for some of the things that they're going to have to do in the next months.
Yeah, that's a really powerful statement, Joan. And, certainly that's something I hope that I don't have to face in my organization, but really wrestling with forgiving yourself for difficult things you're called on to do.
Yeah.
So I know we want to ask folks in chat to answer the question, how is practicing forgiveness building your resilience right now? So we invite you to take a moment to answer that question in chat. I know I did not love the way I showed up on some meetings yesterday, and I wrestle with that, and I have to, forgive myself that, these are trying times and we're not always going to show up in our best possible way. So
tell us on the chat, how are you practicing forgiveness for yourself and others at this moment?
Yes, thank you. And Kelly, if you can type that in, how is practicing forgiveness building your resilience right now?
And I love this idea of dwelling in that appreciation until you feel peace. Dwelling is such a powerful idea, to dwell in this moment of chaos, to just dwell there, to reside there. I think, I'm not sure who sent that, John sent that, just an incredible notion of dwelling. You want to add something more?
I'm just dwelling in that. I think it's the notion of something we got on one of our other calls was the notion of resonancing with one another, right? In that whole vibrational way of being. And you can do that not by being physically present. It's really about connecting in a way that you're expressing, really expressing yourself in a way that brings energy. And I think that's what appreciative resilience is really about, is, getting to that hopeful view where we can share and laugh, like the quarantini that came up on the chat here. We've heard that one, and it's a great way just to laugh. And my niece, who has the COVID-19, posted a picture on Facebook with a Corona. She's sitting there with a Corona beer, right? She says, I'm here with my Corona. Yeah, so laughing about it.
And this, letting go of expectation.
Yeah,
right. Because particularly, I think in United States and Canada, but around the world as well, you know, over the last couple of decades in particular, we've been driven to have this idea of control. And for that control to be wrested away from us speaks wonders. I just glanced up. A bird just landed on our window and is actually listening to the webinar with us. So
that's wonderful.
We're almost out of time.
We are. So what are you hoping people will take away today, Joan and Jeanie?
Well, we'd love people to just do what they're saying they're doing, which is really focusing on others, being kind and generous, focusing on your strength in these times of despair, and take care of yourself and take care of others.
And I think that our call to action, we started off with this, is maybe as you just lie down at night, say, what story will be told of me when this is all over? You know, and it's interesting. I have some older friends, and they've been talking about the polio epidemic, and they said this is exactly the same. You know, we were required to sequester in place. We weren't allowed to gather, all these kinds of things. And I thought it was such a powerful idea to really reflect as I lay down at night as a leader, what story will be told of me when this is over? And so we hope that you kind of take that away as a call to action. The other thing, Jeanie and I wanted to say is that we seem to have a fair bit of time on our hands at the moment.
Yeah, yes, get in touch.
and so if there's something we can do to support you as leaders, and maybe there's not anything we can do, maybe it's just dwelling with you for a few minutes on a Zoom call. We are out here. You can find us on our website. And I think dwelling with each other, this notion that John put up, is a way to help each other be resilient. So thanks for spending time with us.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I always love spending time with you. One of my favorite 2019 memories was the time we were on the beach in San Diego together. And I think holding on to memories of better days is also something that can help get us through. So if you'll forgive me for a quick moment, we did provide some information. If you need the type of work that Joan and Jeanie do in the world, we do hope you'll visit their website or send them an email. You know, I have their book on Kindle, and I'm reminded today that I need to open it up again and revisit these topics of despair and hope and forgiveness. So if you haven't already bought Joan and Jeanie's powerful book, I encourage you to check that out today. Then also a quick sales plug for me and my organization. My company is Weaving Influence, and we specialize in providing digital marketing and media support for authors, thought leaders, and training and consulting companies. We also serve nonprofits and other purpose-driven organizations. So in the event that I could be of help to you, or my team could, in planning and executing digital marketing strategies for yourself or your organization, I would also invite you to email me, Becky@weavinginfluence.com. We will be back tomorrow.
Influence rock.
Thank you. Thank you. And you know, we will be back tomorrow. Tomorrow we have author Bob Maglani, who wrote a book called Embracing the Chaos, and he will be here with us to talk about how we can embrace the chaos in this crazy times. And so we hope that you'll be back with us. We hope that you'll invite friends to join. There is a link that you can use to invite them to join the entire series. For now, we are scheduled through April 15th. And in the event that this crisis continues, we may consider adding dates so that we all have this moment to connect with one another. So thanks for being with us. Thank you so much, Joan and Jeanie.
Oh, thank you, Becky. Thank everyone else.
Have an amazing day, folks. Stay well, stay safe, stay home.
Laugh a lot.
Laugh a lot. Take care.